Welcome in, everybody. My name is Jackson Sylvanik. I'm the managing editor here with the Commercial Cleaning Group at Trade Press Media. And just right at the top, we want to thank you for joining us on this webinar today. We're talking about mastering infection control. It's part of the series we've been doing this summer. If you've been along with us for the ride, it's been a great set of content. We're here to continue it. We want to thank all of our sponsors right away, right at the top. Lysol, Optisolve, and Ecolab. That sponsorship is what makes this stuff possible for us to put on. We're very grateful for their participation and their support. Today we've got a treat. We've got Daryl Hicks. He's the owner and the principal operator of Safe, Clean, and Disinfected. He's the past president of the Healthcare Surfaces Institute. He's a proven leader in the housekeeping and environmental sciences community. Done a lot of work, hospitals ranging from 100 beds to 650 beds, covering a 3+ decade career. He's nationally recognized in this subject matter. Master of infection prevention and control as it relates to the kind of cleaning that we do, that we cover here in the Commercial Cleaning Group. He's written and published tons of articles in professional and healthcare journals. Part of his commitment and his passion for providing cleaner, safer, healthier indoor environments. As his current enterprise, he specializes in B2B consulting, webinars, as we're seeing here, seminars, facility consulting services related to cleaning and disinfection, and all that entails. So today, for this webcast, you obviously have seen the topic. We're going to try to cover some objectives, and they're going to include things getting an overview of what 21st century hygienic cleaning looks like. What does it mean? What are we talking about? The details. We're going to define cleaning for health as it pertains to hygienic cleaning. We're going to provide some clarity on and dispel some myths about chemical disinfectants and disinfectant dwell time. Comes up a lot lately in topics I've been covering. We're going to identify the attributes of an ideal disinfectant and try to educate on cleaning chemistries and what kind of different health outcomes that we are looking for. Before I hand it over to Daryl, real quick, couple housekeeping things. We encourage questions coming in throughout the webinar. Don't feel like you have to wait till the end or anything like that. What we will do is, if you can see if you navigate to the little Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen, should be in your view there. You can type your questions into that box at any time, pop them in there. We'll see them. We'll be able to kind of track them. If it's something super timely, we might be able to jump in and address it. If it's something that we'll save for a Q&A at the end, we'll do that too. Whatever comes to mind, pop it in there, and we'll make sure to get to it at some point. At the conclusion of the webcast today, you're going to get a PDF copy of the slides from the presentation. You'll also get a link to a brief kind of online assessment. It's going to be one of those things. If you complete it, you'll get your CEU certification, the credits for it. We're also going to archive this on cleanlink.com/webcast. Pretty easy to find over there. There's other stuff on there too if you've missed some stuff that you want to catch up on this summer too. So we're excited. We're thrilled. With that, I'm going to turn things over to Daryl.
Thank you, Jackson. Thank you, CleanLink and our sponsors today for allowing me to do this presentation. So welcome to everyone. And so Jackson kind of hit the learning objectives, but really when we're in the 21st century, we have lessons from COVID that we're still sorting through, but what we found out was that it was a virus, and what happened early on in 2020 with people disinfecting groceries coming into their house, all that, and so we should have learned some lessons from that, but I do declare that we have forgotten practically everything that we learned, and so for a lot of businesses, it's back to business as usual. And so I think we're ill prepared for the next one, but hopefully we'll give you some thoughts and some things that will help you prepare in your planning for whatever is coming at us. But we're going to talk about clean for health and what that means, and it's really hygienic cleaning, and it's not it's things at a more microbial level than for appearance sakes. But there's a lot of confusion over chemical disinfectants. There's somewhere around 10,000 right now that EPA has registered as disinfectants. Everything from low-level disinfectants up to sporicidals. But anyway, 10,000 of them, and you got to pick one. Compare the myths and the facts about disinfectant dwell time. Look into the role that dry surface biofilms play in defeating our efforts to provide a safe, clean, and disinfected surface. Challenge you as leaders to trust but verify dilution control dispensers. Alert you to the health effects of cleaning chemistries. Describe the elements in the ideal disinfectant, and inform about this new topic of continuously active disinfectants. So there is my background, and as author of Infection Prevention for Dummies, this was back in 2010, so it's now 14 years old, and so it is still pretty current as far as I can tell. But as the author, I think that I put my 34 years of experience in infection prevention through better, more thorough cleaning into a little book. And I've been thanked many times for someone finally writing a book about the role that cleaning plays in saving lives. So in this 21st century, we have a 24-hour news cycle available to us, and people who spend more time at work in your building than they do at home watch the news. They do watch, listen to it. They're on their phones, they see it, but it's a 24-hour news cycle, and people stay on top of what is happening in your area. So are people worried about MRSA? I would say yes. Just a quick story about why I wrote Infection Prevention for Dummies. My daughter-in-law at the time was about 37 years old, spending a lot of time in the gym, working out, lifting weights and what have you, getting ready to run marathons. And she wound up with an infection in her hand between her thumb and her first finger. And it got worse and worse. And long story short, within about 8 weeks, she was dead, and left my son with 3 small kids, and the youngest was 16 months at the time. But they found out that it was MRSA and became a bloodstream infection. And this is happening at a health facility and supposed to be healthy. But MRSA is one of those things that has rebounded through COVID. While we're watching COVID, people on ventilators in hospitals, we took our eye off of these surface antimicrobial resistant organisms like MRSA, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. RSV is a childhood, but it's also for elderly people, and it's a respiratory virus. But we do have seasonal colds and flus right now that we're in. I'm just getting over bronchitis from last week. So the respiratory bugs are out there. Norovirus is kind of what we call the cruise ship virus, but it's happening more in, there are more foodborne illnesses. The listeria recently with the boar's head meat that closed that plant permanently because of all the egregious conditions in that plant that tainted the meat. And last count I heard, about 10 people have died, but thousands have been sickened by it. But these foodborne bacteria and viruses are out there. And measles is huge. And I read last week where 50% of the parents in this country are averse to the childhood vaccinations that are mandatory. So 50% of the parents of these children are deciding not to get their children vaccinated. And so it's setting us up for the mumps, the measles, the rubella, all that. So I think it's going to become more and more evident as time goes on. And then this last one here is Candida auris. It's a fungus, a mold, and it is growing at about 200% increase each year. And people who wind up getting Candida auris, the mortality rate is about 50%. So it is on everyone's radar, and it ought to be on yours as well. So, excuse me, what you don't see can hurt you. And we're talking about things at a microbial level and not what you can see. A clean building might not be a sanitary building, but a sanitary building is always a clean building. So don't conflate clean with sanitary, but when a building is actually sanitary, it is clean. So our job is to control the growth of harmful microorganisms, and it's vital to human health and our public's health and prevention of infections. When we prevent them, it's the accident that never happened. But, well, going crazy here. There you go. So our job is to remove contaminants from a place of business. By doing that, we will reduce the human exposure to disease and the risk of infection. So think of it as emptying the trash. You know, we have to pull the trash and put it in its proper place. And the same thing happens with cleaning, is that we have to remove the contaminants from the surface, put them in their proper place. And so much of what I see going on with what passes as cleaning right now is polluting. You're just spreading things around and not collecting them and then putting them in their proper place. So removing contaminants from a place of business reduces human exposure to disease, risk of infection. We need to move away from clean for the sake of appearance. So if it looks good and smells clean, it must be clean. And clean for health must become our focus. So clean for health is hygienic cleaning. So the unqualified use of the term cleaning should be avoided in communicating hygiene practices with your staff. You need to get rid of it in your training and in your policies, your S&Ps, SOPs. Get rid of the term clean as being a verb, or cleaning as a verb, or as an adjective. The better definition, terms other than clean could be used to define this process instead of hygienic clean would be hygienically clean, process, or processing. It's time to replace clean or cleaning with hygienic cleaning to refer to any process intended to reduce the numbers of pathogens. Pathogens are these disease-causing and possibly death-causing organisms that wind up on surfaces. So we need to reduce them to an acceptable safety level, target level, which makes it fit for purpose. So what does that mean? You know, when we look at hand hygiene, it's not a whole lot different than environmental hygiene. So when you're washing your hands, you use clean running water. And one of the things we saw back in Ebola days in the early 80s, 2010 or so, Ebola over in Africa was, they had hand washing a bucket of water and a bar of soap there for people who were taking care of these Ebola patients. And the water never got changed, maybe twice a day. So you always want to be the first one to wash your hands and not the last one. But you have to have clean running water. You have to have soap. You have to have agitation. time. We were told back during COVID, to wash your hands and sing the birthday song or your ABCs a couple of times to get the agitation time and attention to places where germs hide under your rings, under women's, fake nails. Those are where germs are hiding through. And then we do thorough rinsing with clean running water and then drying with a clean paper towel. And that clean paper towel removes some of those things that maybe rinsing did not remove. But I'm a proponent of paper towels being available rather than these hand dryers. But same same steps kind of with environmental hygiene. So the effective environmental hygiene should include these elements. So you've got a clean microfiber wiper or flat mop, general purpose cleaner with a pH of 7 to 9, elbow grease. And this is one thing that I see happening is what I call spray and pray. And it's spray a disinfectant on a surface and wipe it without the elbow grease. You have to apply 1 to 2 pounds of pressure on that. And there's a certain way to do that. And we need to get better at removing the soil from a surface. So attention to where germs hide, look at, cracks and crevices, those sorts of things. But when the surface is dry, then you apply the sporicidal hospital grade disinfectant and must remain wet for 60 to 90 seconds. So we're applying this to a pre-cleaned surface. And I want to make that clear to you that too often we interchange the words disinfecting and cleaning like they're the same thing. But in the real world, it's a two-step process, clean and then disinfect. And then rinse with clear water and wipe dry, since many disinfectants are corrosive to surface materials and or will leave a visible film when dry. So rinse is a final step. We don't clean surfaces, we process them. Processing, if done correctly, removes the food and moisture necessary for microorganisms to survive. Bacteria need 3 things in order to survive. They need food, they need moisture, and they need oxygen. If we can remove the food from the surface through processing, then there's not much left there for them to live on. We can remove 98, 99% of soil from the surface, then we're way ahead, so that the chemical disinfectants have a much better chance of doing their job when high levels of that organic soil are gone. So by removing the organic soil with microfiber and appropriate cleaner, you give the right disinfectant a much better opportunity to kill the germs, bacteria, and viruses that are on that product's label. When 99.9% of the soil is removed from a surface, sometimes with just microfiber and water, chances are the bad guys are gone too. For too long in this country, we have depended on disinfectants to do what good thorough cleaning would do a much better job of. We've just dumped disinfectants on and expected them to fight through the soil and the biofilm and all that, and get to the killing action that's of those organisms on the product's label. But here's a phrase you need to remove from your policies and procedures and employee education. Get rid of the phrase clean when visibly soiled. The data show that potentially unsafe levels of pathogens can remain on visibly clean surfaces. Now, this is the one that gets you, is that fecal matter the size of a pinhead contains sufficient material to transmit E. coli or C. difficile. When you instruct your staff to clean touch points that are visibly soiled, are they looking for soil the size of a pinhead? No, they're not. And visibly soiled to who? The lady that forgot to bring her glasses to work today? we just need to get rid of the idea that if it looks clean, that all we have to do is disinfect it. So the transmission happens from objects to people. It's been proven that some pathogens can live on a dry surface for up to 1 year, undisturbed. If that surface is not processed properly, people will transfer the pathogen from the contaminated surface to their hands. Studies have proven that people touch their face up to 30 times an hour. Germy hands touch their owner's eyes, nose, or mouth. Now the pathogen has found a point of entry into the body. That's the three routes of entry is eyes, nose, and mouth. So let's talk about disinfectants. The sheer volume and variety of disinfectant options can be confusing, making it hard to know which direction to go. Like many things in the cleaning and disinfection world, disinfectant preferences are based as much on opinion as they are on science. This presentation will help clarify misconceptions and provide guidance on appropriate disinfectant use in healthcare and other indoor environments. So, disease-causing microorganisms often live on inanimate or hard, non-porous surfaces, leaving them capable of contaminating clean hands or clean gloves. And they also live on inanimate surfaces that are porous, such as privacy curtains, such as fabric on upholstery, such as the mattress on the patient's bed or the stretcher. All those are soft, porous surfaces. In healthcare lingo, these surfaces are then referred to as fomites. Fomites serve as reservoirs that allow pathogens to persist and spread infections for hours, days, weeks, or longer. Individual pathogen characteristics determine its ability to survive. For example, C. diff spores can linger on floors and surfaces for as long as 5 months, while MRSA and Staph aureus can persist for up to 7 months. Some microbes are easy to kill, thus averting the need for disinfection, while others are harder to kill and may require disinfection. But you don't know what's on that surface, so you can't assume that they fall into one classification or the other. You need to treat them as if they're all hard to kill, and you need to match the disinfectant to the harder to kill organisms, because if you assume that everything is a low level, enveloped in virus like COVID is, then if you set the bar too low. If a disinfectant is required, should only be applied to a pre-cleaned surface to remove organic soil and ensure the efficacy of the disinfectant. So what's the difference between cleaning and disinfecting a surface? Cleaning does not necessarily kill germs. This is the CDC's definition of these terms. Cleaning does not necessarily kill germs, but by removing them, it lowers their numbers and the risk of spreading infection. Disinfecting does not necessarily clean dirty surfaces or remove germs, but by killing germs on a surface after cleaning, remember, after cleaning, it can further lower the risk of spreading infection. Clean first before you disinfect. Germs can hide underneath dirt and other organic matter on surfaces where they may not be affected by the disinfectant. So what does the phrase kills 99.9% of germs mean? Really not much. If we start with 1 million pathogens on a surface and sanitize to kill 99.9%, 1,000 pathogens would still remain on that surface. Norovirus only needs half that amount, so about 500 in order to flourish in an indoor environment. But if we disinfect to kill 99.9999% of the pathogens, only one would remain, and norovirus would be eliminated. So a big difference between sanitizers and disinfectants. Fit for purpose. I mentioned this earlier. We clean to a fit for purpose. At a minimum, cleaning must achieve a state of sanitation. The public sanitation is what we're looking, that is the bar that we have to clear, is safe for public occupancy. For an environment to be considered sanitary, it must be clean to the point that it protects human health in general. Though it may still be contaminated, the risk of disease is at an acceptable level or fit for purpose. Fit for purpose in a restroom in a school may not be the same as the operating room in a hospital. And so there are two purposes for those rooms to be used. And so we clean so that there is no, so that we're protecting human health in general. Unsanitary conditions pose a likely health risk. The purpose of cleaning is to correct the risky condition. Therefore, if a risk has not been improved to a level considered sanitary, fit for purpose has not been accomplished. The goal of cleaning and disinfecting processes is to return frequently touched surfaces to its fit for purpose condition. Who knows how many lives can be saved through consistent and effectual cleaning and disinfection? It's the accident that never happened. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So we're going to have to do some unlearning. So the myth, the contact time on a disinfectant's label is the time a surface must remain wet for the disinfectant to kill the listed organisms. Fact, 10-minute contact time is meant for EPA registration, not the time it takes to kill microorganisms on pre-cleaned surfaces. That contact time is part of the AOAC testing. EPA does not test any disinfectants. Labs that are sanctioned by CDC or EPA are the ones that do the testing, but there are strict protocols. But if a surface processed with a microdenier, microfiber cloth, and general purpose cleaner before disinfectant is applied, the surface needs to remain wet for 30 seconds. This is back to that two-step process. If we're applying disinfectants to a surface that has had 98 to 99% of the soil removed from it, and with the soil went the bad guys, then at least 14 scientific studies, this is in the 2008 CDC HIPAC guidance for cleaning and disinfection. Bill Rotalo, you'll see here in a minute. But anyway, he is stated there in the cleaning that there are 14 scientific studies that say that pre-cleaned surfaces, you only need 30 seconds of contact or wet time. Disinfectants are tested without any wiping action, and that's why they're dipped into a diluted solution of the disinfectant. There is no mechanical action on those stainless steel titers. So it's not real world conditions. Even though most surfaces are disinfected with wiping, testing and label claims of products used for the purpose rarely entail any wiping action. And to my estimation, this is a serious omission. So here is the Rotala slide, and the products are listed over on the left, phenolics, squats, and Clorox bleach. And you see that these two organisms up here at the top, Staph aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa, are the two that get you a hospital disinfectant claim. It has to kill Staph aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So at 30 seconds, you see that the log reduction for phenolics on this is a pre-cleaned surface reaches 8.2. Remember, disinfection is a 6 log reduction. I'm sorry, 6 log reduction. So you're getting 8.2 on pre-cleaned surfaces at 30 seconds, and you see there at 5 minutes, it doesn't continue to kill anymore. At 5 minutes, it's still 8.2. And for the two organisms, you see a little bit drop off with Pseudomonas, but it still meets the 6-log reduction for all but the Clorox bleach. But here you have the effects of pre-cleaned surfaces. Equally important is disinfectant contact time is the application of the disinfectant to the surface or equipment to ensure that all contaminated surfaces are wiped. Current studies demonstrate that only approximately 50% of high-risk objects in a hospital room are effectively cleaned on any given day. Washing or scrubbing a surface while applying, this is the elbow grease, the 1 to 2 pounds of pressure will physically remove soil and organic materials such as blood, body fluids, while taking many pathogens with it. High-tech solutions and plenty of mechanical action are what is needed in the intensified fight against surface contamination. To be sure, an EPA-registered disinfectants label is a legal document which states it is a violation of federal law to use this product in a manner inconsistent with its labeling. However, there's no data that demonstrates improved infection prevention by a greater than 3 to 4 minute contact time. I'm not aware of enforcement action against an organization for off-label use of disinfectants in this regard. In my professional opinion, the guideline allows us to continue our use of low-level disinfectants for non-critical environmental surfaces with a 1 minute contact time. Additionally, all facilities should reemphasize the thoroughness of cleaning to ensure that all contaminated surfaces are wiped. I believe it's time to revise the US EPA's disinfectant approval process. The US EPA does not require clinical evidence of efficacy for registration of disinfectants, which is in stark contrast to the Food and Drug Administration, which requires evidence of clinical efficacy in the registration of antimicrobials. Antimicrobials are like skin cleansers, like the betadine rubs and what have you. So FDA requires field efficacy, and EPA doesn't. It's in the lab. This is problematic because public health claims allowed by the EPA are based on in vitro studies and tests on organic matter in controlled lab settings, assays, and not in the real world. Here's the real world where disinfectants ought to be tested. This is a trauma room in an emergency department after an auto accident. Victim was treated, and you see the soil load on that. Now, I'm not saying that any disinfectant without pre-cleaning would be very effective here, but this is the real world, and we need our disinfectants to live up to the real world. And this is one end of the spectrum, cleaning the offices or public restrooms or elevator buttons isn't going to come up to the same standards as this trauma room does. But we need to understand that it's also about dry surface biofilm. This is something that awareness of cleaning professionals like we are of these dry surface biofilms is low, but it's key that everyone in the cleaning business understand the impact of these dry surface biofilms and adjust your infection prevention and disinfecting protocols accordingly. These DSBs pose significant challenges in public spaces because they protect organisms contained within them. They are difficult to eradicate and are invisible to the naked eye. Research suggests that traditional disinfectants kill the surface microorganisms, but the DSBs provide a life raft, allowing the bugs to be protected from the cleaning and disinfection. So just imagine these guys going into this bubble of life raft that protects them from the disinfectant, and you'll have some pathogens or some organisms that are not pathogenic, and the bad guys are sharing their drug resistance with the guys that are just there for the ride. So it's changing the benign path, organisms, changing them into being drug resistant as well. This will mean that life-threatening superbug outbreaks of Candida auris, for example, can be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to bring under control with traditional disinfectants. I don't know if you've been to Las Vegas, but in the last year, I think 4 of the major hospitals in Las Vegas have been battling this Candida auris, and they're not winning the battle. And there have been, once Candida auris gets onto surfaces in this dry surface biofilm, it is practically impossible to eradicate. So myth number 1 is biofilms are easily penetrated by most disinfectants. The fact is, biofilms can be up to 1,500 times less susceptible to disinfectants. For example, biofilm was not eliminated even after 2 terminal cleans with bleach at 10,000 parts per million. Normal use for bleach in any setting is less than probably 3,000 parts per million. This was 10,000 parts per million, and 2 cleans did not eliminate the biofilm at 10,000 parts per million. Myth number 2, dry surface biofilms can be easily removed with scrubbing. Fact is that dry surface biofilms are extremely difficult to remove even when using a lot of friction. So in order to find out if it has a biofilm claim, see, the EPA does not have a list letter for dry surface biofilm. So if you have a question about, does your disinfectant have a dry surface biofilm claim on it, you have to go to the master label. There is an EPA test for a disinfectant biofilm claim on hard, non-porous surfaces. EPA's List P includes antimicrobial products registered for claims against C. auris that I just mentioned in the slide before. There are currently 38 products from 13 chemical manufacturers on List P. Now, this List P and List K for C. diff are the 2, I think, pinnacle disinfectants, the List P and the List K. But you have to go to that product's master label in order to see if it has a dry surface biofilm claim. It can be on the product's label, but most likely you may have to go to the EPA's master list. Some may be considered hazardous to health. Some of these disinfectants that are on List P or List K can be hazardous to your health, those who are using them. That leaves only a few that have both claims and are safe for disinfection facility-wide. Here's a CDC I saw in a bathroom. I had to take a picture of it. So 1 trillion germs can live in 1 gram of poop. To give you an idea of a trillion seconds ago was back in prehistoric times. So 1 trillion germs can live in 1 gram, which is the equivalent of the weight of a paperclip. So visible cleanliness is a recipe for disaster. I said earlier, fecal matter the size of a pinhead contains enough infective material to transmit C. diff. Service can only be judged safe if it has been subjected to a validated hygiene process, which has been carried out in the prescribed manner. Visible cleanliness alone is not sufficient. Trust but verify what's in your bucket. Not all dilution control dispensing systems perform consistently due to various factors which may affect the dilution accuracy. I just read where I actually talked to an infection control nurse in the Tampa area yesterday, and he said that he had his infection preventionists out checking the dilution control systems because they saw an uptick in their HAIs, and they traced it back to these automated dilution control systems that had not been calibrated in eons. And instead of disinfectants being dispensed at greater than 800 parts per million, they're getting 200 to 300. So they might as well have been using water, save their money on the disinfectants because they weren't doing their jobs. So if you're using these dispensing stations, you must regularly test concentrated solutions to verify the appropriate in-use concentration is being dispensed. The dilution is the amount of water that is added to the concentrate to do the job and do it effectively. Always dilute concentrated disinfectant products according to label instructions. Don't add anything else such as deodorizers to the disinfectant solution. Remember, if you add anything to it, you're in violation of EPA's label on that product that says it has to be used in the manner that the label calls out. So let's talk about cleaning products. Let me just give you the gist of it, is that cleaning employees, professional cleaners, custodians, janitors, etc., Department of Labor, OSHA says that they're at least twice as likely to get chronic respiratory lung issues, COPD, because of inhaling the cleaners and disinfectants. And that's because of and it's breathing the quats and peracetic acid in the line of duty. There isn't an OSHA standard about that, but here's the standard. It's called the General Duty Clause. By definition, means that employers must protect employees from any serious hazard once they're aware of it, whether OSHA's rules specifically address it or not. Some of the most common disinfectants, such as bleach, have been linked to high rates of occupational asthma. In fact, the rate of occupational asthma among janitorial workers is double the rate of other workers. People who have worked as cleaners or done household cleaning for 20 years have reduced lung function equivalent to smoking 20 cigarettes a day for the same period. What should a prudent man do? This is what the OSHA inspector that came to our hospital told me. He said, what would the prudent man do? I said, I guess we would get rid of the trigger sprayers. And he said, bingo. He said, use a flip top if you're going to dispense it. Another way of doing that is just get rid of the chemistry, go with disinfectants with HMIS hazard classification of all zeros for health, flammability, physical hazards. The safest chemicals have an EPA toxicity category 4, meaning non-toxic. They have a neutral pH, little or no PPE requirements, biodegradable, because they will not persist in the environment. Of all these products, there's 10,000 registered of all these 4 chemistries: hypochlorous acid, bleach, peracetic acid, sodium dichloroisocyanate are effective against endospore-forming bacteria such as C. diff. Handful of large manufacturers produce these 4 basic chemistries, which then are private labeled by scores of companies. So you just look at the EPA registration to view the master label. NADCC is one of those new ones, or newer in my mind, and as far as I'm concerned, they touch most of my buttons, and for safe and efficacious, with claims against CRS, C. diff, and destroying biofilm. And so one other aspect of it is that they have continuously active disinfectant, and have that claim for up to 24 hours. CADs still require an initial dwell time, but that does not mean the surface cannot be touched for 24 hours. peer-reviewed paper on the impact of continuously active disinfectant on bacterial surface concentrations and biofilm growth showed NADCC not only reduced surface bacteria, including disinfectant-resistant C. diff spores, but inhibited biofilm growth for 24 hours. So, it's your turn. Questions?
Well, Daryl, thanks for that terrifying presentation. I was just noticing how disgusting my desk is. Yeah, we did have somebody kind of Stephanie wanted to know if abrasives can help remove biofilm. I was wondering about this too when you were talking about it. This especially this dry biofilm. What can we do about this? When we're attacking biofilms, what does that look like? What are some kind of ways to sort of approach that in different scenarios?
Well, one of the technologies that I'm aware of is dry steam vapor. Will do a good job, and the newer ones have got what I think is a very good, to cover larger areas rather than just thinking of a little nozzle that you clean the grout in your bathtub with. But anyway, dry steam vapor is one, but one that I didn't mention that I think has got a lot of promise is the use of probiotics on surfaces. And the idea of probiotics is that they douse the surface with healthy bacteria. And you think about Hunger Games, and so the healthy bacteria starts gobbling up all the food on the surface and makes for a hostile environment for the bad guys to survive because there's no food. The probiotics, wherever they give them for your stomach, for your gut, the notion is that you have healthy, viable bacteria that will live in your gut and kind of knock out some of these gastronal sort of bugs that we get from time to time. But I think probiotics, the KOCH Institute in Germany, which is kind of their CDC over there, not CDC, but it's very well thought of, but they have looked into the use of probiotics instead of so many disinfectants on surfaces, and they're having good results with keeping bacterial counts low on surfaces without a whole lot of effort. And I think its greatest application is on floors because gravity works and everything falls down to the floor. And we always are testing floors, and we find C. diff and all these different organisms living and having a fun time on the floors. And I say, well, unless you lick floors, then I don't think you got a problem. But people say, well, patients wear socks and then they get into their bed, and so then it goes from the floor to the sheets. And so anyway, I think that we have an opportunity to pretty much eliminate the pathogens on floors if we use probiotics instead of disinfectants, because whenever you disinfect any surface, you just take a snapshot in time, and what maintains that surface for the next 23 hours and 45 minutes until the cleaning person returns to disinfect it again. So bacteria rebounds very quickly within hours. Within 4 hours, one bacteria becomes enough that it's as if you didn't disinfect that surface 4 hours ago. So we need to do a better job of making sure that we have healthy floors, and probiotics are healthier than I think some of the toxic disinfectants that we use, because we tend to think that stronger is better, more toxic is better, but it's corrosive to surfaces and it's toxic to humans and the inhabitants of the buildings. We found during COVID, when electrostatic application of disinfectants was wholesale that people returning to those workplaces were, complaining about respiratory issues, about breathing disinfectants. And so, we have to think about when we leave the building, are we leaving it healthier than when we came?
Of course, interesting. That kind of leads into another question I was wondering about. We were talking about like dwell time and having that patience to wait the proper amount of time and things like that. And you mentioned, part of that includes keeping the surface wet. That's what it means. And dwell time was one of the first kind of light bulb moments for me when I started working in the cleaning industry, because I became very aware of like what these terms really meant. And so I would think, you spray something, you let it sit for a little while, it's good to go. But as you noted, bacteria are pretty resilient. And you specified it's critical to wipe as well when you're done. Is there sort of a kind of a best practices for you know what you wipe with? Does the material make a difference? If you re-wet a surface, a spot that you've disinfected, a few minutes after you've done it, does that reset the clock? Does that make sense? I know that might be an elementary question, but I've always kind of wondered that. Does you have to start the 10-minute timer over again?
Well, the thing is that back in the day when I started, everything was pretty much a 10-minute dwell time, contact time. I don't think those terms are interchangeable, but the label will specify whether it's contact time, dwell time. But the thing is that 10 minutes is unrealistic. The surface will dry if you don't just saturate it, which is a problem in itself of
Mhm.
saturating surfaces to get that 10-minute contact time. And I've seen people go into public restrooms, and to get the 10-minute dwell time, they'll walk around with a pump up sprayer and spray disinfectant on everything in the bathroom to give it the 10-minute contact time. But you might as well be pouring Chanel #5 on a pile of cow manure. And so by not removing the soil, contact time doesn't mean anything, because um, it's it's not killing anything because of the soil load. So, you know, to get a 10-minute contact time, it normally would dry in about, surface would dry in about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, unless you just saturate it. So you would have to re-wet that surface 6 times to get the 10 minutes.
Sheesh.
And so, when you're cleaning an operating room and the surgeon is standing at the door, you tell the surgeon, just a minute, doc, I got to re-wet this table 3 more times, and he would have your job.
Hmm.
But anyway, it's unrealistic. And as I said, it's for that registration on that label is to register that product with the EPA, but there is no wiping action with that. And it's not real world conditions that we use some elbow grease and the right cloth. You ask what's the right cloth? I would say a microdenier microfiber. And not all microfibers are created equal, but you have to have the right wiping material. And with that, microfiber acts kind of as a scraper. And so it will do a better job of disrupting the biofilm with a microfiber, and some 1 to 2 pounds of pressure on that will do a lot. But then if you have a disinfectant that has a biofilm kill claim, it's not to kill the biofilm, but it's to kill the bacteria inside that biofilm. So if
Hmm.
you use the right disinfectant in that wiper, then you are not necessarily removing the biofilm, but you're killing the bad guys that are inside it.
Hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. Um, but well, this also kind of ties into that. I keep thinking about really like that image of the trauma room that you posted, and I was thinking of just the work it would take to clean that effectively, and how interesting that is. And Ricardo asks in the Q&A if you have an opinion that you'd want to share about UVC germicidal light. Is it helpful in being giving a more effective clean? What are your thoughts on that as a tool that's kind of been growing in kind of wide use over the last 4 or 5 years?
Well, I equate it to, you know, if I eat spaghetti for lunch and I take the plate and I don't wash it and I just take that plate with the spaghetti sauce on and I stick it in the microwave for 2 minutes, it will kill whatever is on there. It will be safe to eat on, but would you want to eat on that plate? Stick
Hmm.
it up in the cupboard, and so we have to all these technologies that whether it's UV light, hydrogen peroxide, vapor, whatever, uh, it the manufacturers say that it has to be applied. That technology has to be applied to pre-clean surfaces. So if you're going to start with a pre-clean surface, then maybe the electrostatic application of the disinfectant would be quicker and reaching more spots than that UV light with a line of sight problems. And you know, so the new technologies, I think, whole room disinfectant systems are great, but I would rather skate more towards taking the money that you would spend on UV light over, 5-year period. You know, you'd be better spent if you increase the cleaning frequencies in those
Hmm.
rooms to twice a day or 3 times a day instead of putting your money on UV light
Right.
disinfecting. But I'm not an opponent of them, but I believe that they work great in certain circumstances. And but to hinge our whole future on the sexy UV lights, I don't think is the way
Hmm.
to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
Cleaning isn't sexy. It's it's still hard work, and the people that do it well, we ought to begin certifying them to a certain level of knowledge. If they're going to do us well in the next pandemic, then we need to start certifying them today that they are educated about how things get passed around in the facility and their role as breaking that chain of infection. And we would be spending our money better if we started certifying those people. And the pushback I get on that is, what if I certify them and they leave? I say, what if you don't certify them and they stay?
Hmm. Yep. And it'd be, a shame to not capitalize on what we've learned the last few years because I'm sure it'll happen again. Something like this the next wave will happen at some point with something else, and we'll have to be prepared, and we'll learn from that too, and we'll keep going. I was just wondering, is there anything that you want to kind of wrap up with as a send-off point for our attendees, kind of a go to war against the cleaning the germs kind of message for us, a takeaway. What would you say to everybody just to send them packing?
Well, one of the things that I see showing up is, doing ATP testing, and I think that it has its place. It is an audit tool, is not a validation. But the three elements that we have at work here is the right product, the right process, and the right person doing the job. It's a three-legged stool. And so if we can use ATP and validate that each one of those legs is solid and is doing its job, the right product, the right process, and the right person doing it, then we're going to be further ahead. But people ask about using ATP, and I think that is just a 2x2 square is all that we're looking at, and then we're saying that that's indicative of the entire room when you could have gotten lucky and picked the cleanest part of the room and said the whole room was clean. But I believe that observation, that we as leaders in this business need to do more observation and make sure that the person who checked all the boxes on their training and their new employee orientation, and they were trained correctly, they were educated about transmission of disease, all this, but then you go and you see them clean the toilet, and then they use the same rag and go over and clean the sink. You have problems. It's not the training, because you check them out, but you need to make rounds and you need to inspect what you expect. And so I think it's more visual and more of that closer supervision of people. And I hear supervisors that have 25, 30 people, and that is not manageable. If you're going to put eyes on what they're doing and how they're doing it, it's nearly impossible. But I would encourage you to put more emphasis on making rounds and actually rubbing elbows with the people that are doing that work, and give them the encouragement and the coaching that they need to do a great job. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to do a lousy job today. I think that they come expecting the support that they need, the right tools. And what I say here is that one well-trained, well-equipped, conscientious cleaning professional, given the proper tools, adequate amount of time to hygienically clean a room, can prevent more infections than a room full of doctors can cure. And that's what we're in the business of, is infection prevention. And if someone had done a better job of cleaning the equipment at the workout facility my daughter-in-law was using at the time, she might still be alive today. And
Wow.
my kids would have grown up, grandkids would have grown up with their mother. And so it's tragic, and it happens all the time. And it's hard to find somebody that hasn't experienced the tragedy of these superbug microorganisms that live on surfaces that someone didn't do a very good job of cleaning. And so loved ones die, and lives are changed, families are changed forever.
Comes down to that front line, it's
Yes.
the best line of defense. Well, Daryl, thank you for the presentation. Super, super stuff, really enlightening. We appreciate the time and everything. Folks, again, you'll get a PDF after this in your email that'll have some of the slides. You can review the info. I'm just looking through them myself. Tons of great stuff in there. If you want to get your CEU, check your email for the quiz you can take to get that all taken care of. This will also be archived on cleanlink.com with some other stuff. There's some past stuff on there too. You can go check it out, get into the video library there. If you think of anything that you want to ask or run by us, you can contact any of us at Trade Press or cleanlink.com in the contact section. With that, just again, Daryl, awesome stuff. We appreciate the time so much. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Awesome to see this many people coming in on a weekday to hear some of this stuff, which I think is critically important and really at the core of kind of what we try to do. So thank you everybody for coming along. Thank you, Daryl, for the presentation.
Thank you all.
We appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, everybody.
So long.